This is From Both Sides, a spontaneous, free-flowing conversation featuring a dynamic team of women, providing insights into both political and civic events affecting the lives of women throughout Pennsylvania. And now, here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of From Both Sides. We have a very special show for you tonight. We're live at the Grantville Holiday Inn in Grantville, Pennsylvania. We're with the Pennsylvania Federation of Democratic Women and their 2017 Judicial Forum. Tonight we're going to be featuring the 4 endorsed Democratic candidates for the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. The Superior Court was created in 1895 to help reduce the workload of the Supreme Court and hear appeals from the Pennsylvania Common Pleas courts. On behalf of the Democratic Women of Pennsylvania, I'd like to welcome our viewers, our live audience, and our candidates to the 2017 Judicial Forum. I'm Michelle Soletto, the chairman of the Federation's Political Action Committee and the host of the Public Affairs Policy Show on Comcast Public Stations From Both Sides. Normally, we represent both sides. However, today there will be only one side, and that of our Democratic endorsed candidates for Superior Court. While we were all here well aware of the outstanding array of endorsed Democratic Superior Court candidates sitting before us tonight, and we want to thank each of you for your public service. Many of us have had the opportunity to meet you each and to hear you speak at other Democratic forums. So tonight we'd like to take this opportunity to ensure that our listeners from both sides all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania will hear from each of you on issues that we think are important to Pennsylvania families. I'd like to now introduce our 4 endorsed Democratic candidates for Superior Court. The Honorable Deborah Kunselman, Common Pleas Court Judge, Beaver County. Judge, welcome.
Thank you.
The Honorable Maria McLaughlin, Common Pleas Court Judge, Philadelphia County. Welcome.
Thank you.
The Honorable Jeff Moulton, Judge, Superior Court of Pennsylvania. Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle.
The Honorable Carolyn Nichols, Common Pleas Court Judge, Philadelphia County.
Thank
Welcome.
You as well.
And I'd like the viewers to keep in mind that for the May 16th primary, Democratic voters may choose 4 candidates. Representing the Federation today from our Political Action Committee, joining me is my colleague Diane Gregg. Diane, welcome.
Thank you.
The ground rules for this forum are that all candidates will be asked the same questions, and each question will have a timed response. Since our live audience is already rather well versed in the basics about each candidate, we will dispense with the traditional introductory remarks, but if you wish to weave that into your timed responses, please feel free to do so. So the first question, Diane?
What is the single most important thing for voters to know about the work of your court? Starting with Judge Kunselman, please.
So I think that the voters need to be aware about just how busy this court is. When people take appeals from the Common Pleas Court, there are about 8,000 cases that get appealed up to the Superior Court each year. Of that, 5,000 cases get decided by this court, and there are 15 judges who make those rulings. We sit in panels of 3 to determine whether the trial court made a mistake and whether that mistake affected the outcome of the case. So I think that voters just need to be aware that this is a very, very busy court and that you want to have a judge on that court that is very qualified, both by education and experience.
Same question? So I think it's important for the public and everyone to know that the Superior Court is an error-correcting court. So what goes up to the Superior Court are when people believe, litigants believe, that judges like us at the Court of Common Pleas level made an error. I think when you think about who you want to elect to that bench, you have to think about your qualifications. Speaking about myself personally, I have never had an appeal overturned. I'm a judge in the largest jurisdiction in the Commonwealth, and I've had thousands of rulings and only 5 appeals and never overturned. So I think that's very important when you look about who you want to elect, because it is an error-correcting court. I think that's something that it's important to know.
Thank you. I agree with both Judges Kunselman and McLaughlin. I've been on the court now for about 7 months, and we are a very busy court, and our principal function is error correction. There are 460 Common Pleas Court judges throughout the state, and again, very often somebody's unhappy at the end of a trial, and they appeal. Most of those appeals come to us. And our job is to make sure that the litigants below were on a level playing field, that they were all treated fairly. And so what you want on the court is, as Judge Kunzelman said, people with strong qualifications, a broad base of experience, and people who are, I think as President Obama said when he began picking judges, people who are empathetic, people who understand, can put themselves in the shoes of the litigants before them to make sure that they got a fair shake at trial. And if they didn't, that they get to go back and do it again. I think Judge Nichols often says, and I'm just going to steal part of her minute here, but most cases end with us. Most cases end with us. The Supreme Court takes only a tiny fraction of our cases. So for most people, we are the court of last resort. And you want to have people there who are empathetic, who have a broad base of experience, and who understand what goes on at the trial court level.
All right. Since Jeff borrowed some of my lines,
Not all of it.
not all of it. The most important thing for voters to understand about the Superior Court is that the overarching concern of the Superior Court is justice. Yes, it is an error-correcting court, but the whole point of it is justice. Was there a fair trial? Were the litigants treated fairly? 60% of the cases that Superior Court hears are criminal cases. As a criminal court judge, trial judge in the Court of Common Pleas, I understand what that's all about. I conduct 30 to 40 jury trials a year, primarily cases dealing with sexual violence, domestic violence, drugs, guns, carjackings, all of those kinds of things. So it's very important that the victims were treated fairly, that the defendants were treated fairly, and that is the overarching concern of the Superior Court in determining whether or not errors were made, whether or not the judge made an error of law, whether there was any bias or any improper conduct in the conduct of the court. And my career has been about inclusion and justice, and that's why I want to go to the Superior Court. Thank you.
Okay, our next question, and we will start with Judge Moulton for this question. What sets you apart from those Republicans who you are running against? In other words, why should the women of Pennsylvania vote for you?
Now, those are two good questions. I think there are two, and I'm sure I'm not going to get 2 minutes to answer. But first, I will say on the second part of your question, been married 34 years, raised 2 daughters who are both strong, independent women, 26 and 29 years old, both scientists, too smart to go to law school, I think. And as I've said to other people before, we're proud of them for lots of reasons, but they're both off the family payroll now, which is terrific. I think right now we're focused on the primary, so I'm not going to focus on the Republican opponents, but I'm proud to run with this group of 3 women. One thing I will say about our court, the Superior Court, if this slate of candidates gets elected in 2017, of our 15 judges on the court, 10 will be women. And there are not many places to which I bring any diversity, but I'm proud to be running with this group. Thank you.
Well, if Republicans want to vote for this slate, we're all for that. We certainly endorse that message. That would be a great thing. It's important to vote for me as well as everyone else on this team because we come from diverse backgrounds. We have all kinds of experience in law, criminal law, family law, civil law, and we bring the respect and sensitivity to diverse communities and respect the rule of law, which is the most important thing, to respect the rule of law and respect all people coming into the court. People come into the court from all kinds of backgrounds, particularly in criminal court. I see people with substance abuse issues, mental health issues, many issues. They come into court angry, the victim of sexual assault or other crimes. So it's important to kind of cool all that out so that we can get to the business of justice. And that's why this team is the team for Pennsylvania, and we will take independent votes, we will take Republican votes, and we'll take Democratic votes because we are about justice, and we're going to bring justice to Superior Court. Thank you.
So I think what sets us apart is that we cover all the bases. When you look here at our slate, we have candidates from the West. I'm the Western Pennsylvania representative. We have candidates from the East. We have candidates from the big city. We have candidates from a smaller county. And our backgrounds, I have a very strong civil and family background. I know Carolyn has a strong criminal background. Maria has a very strong criminal background, and she's also in family court. And Jeff has done a lot of administrative work and worked for the governor. So I think when you look at the diversity that all of us bring, we collectively represent what you would want to have as a group of candidates on the Superior Court. Personally, I think that the women should vote for me because I have already shattered the glass ceiling in my county. I am the very first and only woman ever elected to the Court of Common Pleas in Beaver County. And so I've set the standard, I've tried to set the standard very high for what should be expected of a judge on our bench. I was also the only female county solicitor, first female county solicitor in my county. So I bring a very diverse background to the bench. And I think that's why voters should vote for me.
So what sets us apart, I believe, is we did not vote for Donald Trump. So that's the first thing. And I think we should get credit for that. Also, what I think sets us apart is we're going to win. So the four of us here are going to be the next four Superior Court judges. Why I believe that you should vote for me and what sets me apart is for most of my life, or at least women, I think you can appreciate, or many of you can, that for a large part of my son's lives, 2 of them, I was a single mom. And I had to leave a job in the district attorney's office where I was one of the youngest female chiefs ever appointed, and still to hold that position in the city of Philadelphia. But my 2 boys know when I left that job as a single mom with no job to run for judge, that I told them they're going to know one thing, that their mother has guts. So now they're 2 fine young men in college, not off of my payroll, not even close. And so they know and support me in this win for the Superior Court. Thank you.
Judge Nichols, let's start with you this time. What is your history in mentoring women and minorities?
Well, I have a very strong history in mentoring women and minorities because I'm both. I'm a woman and an African American, and throughout my career as an attorney, as a government administrator, I was the director of minority business contracts for the city of Philadelphia. My role was to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses got their fair share of city contracts. So I always mentored and networked with women entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs to help them get their fair share and navigate through the city's procurement process. As a judge in particular, I go to high schools, law schools, colleges. I bring young people into my court so they can see the court, understand about trials, understand how the criminal justice system works, primarily for the teenagers, to make sure they don't deviate on a path that they end up in the system in the wrong way. I'm committed to stopping the school, to prison pipeline that has destroyed, a generation of youth, and I'm committed to doing whatever I can do to make that stop.
So I believe that to whom much is given, much is required. And I've been very blessed to be and privileged to be in the role that I am in the Court of Common Pleas. And so I believe it's my job to give back to my community. And I have hired, I've hired a Latina law clerk. I've also hired a Jewish law clerk. He's the second, I think there's only 2 Jewish lawyers in my whole county. So I think it's very important that we don't look at where a person comes from or what their background is, but what they can bring to the table. And I try to encourage young people in the law, bring them up, have them sit in my courtroom. I actually had 4 high school students in the last 2 weeks job shadow me as part of their senior project. So I think it's very important that we do our job in bringing people through the system and showing them what we can do and what's possible for them.
So in Philadelphia, Judge McLaughlin's courtroom every Friday is filled with young women who I mentor. That's what I do on Friday afternoons. I allow all the young women law students, any school at all, to come to my courtroom and sit. And after every case, I explain. I give them the opportunity to come back when I'm interviewing children, things of that nature, just so they can learn. With respect to minorities, in the city of Philadelphia, that certainly is not a hard task. I welcome that task and always did. As a DA, I always took young minority women to see what they can do, to show them what they can do. We go into the prisons in Philadelphia, the judges, and we mentor prisoners who are getting out, many of whom are minorities. Bring them clothing, show them how to dress, act on an interview, get custody of their children back. I think there's nothing more important. I had a number of wonderful mentors growing up. And so I think that's absolutely my duty to do. And so I think it's important for me, too, as a mother of 2 sons, for them to know what their mother can do and what she does. So that's something very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I've had the privilege in my career to be responsible for overseeing large departments of lawyers and including doing hiring. Most recently, I was the governor's first deputy general counsel. And one of the things that we did there, and I was privileged to work for the governor's general counsel, Denise Smiler, the first African-American woman general counsel in the history of Pennsylvania. And one of the things we did right away is we took a look at the chief counsels in the state. And there were 32 chief counsels in the state. At the time, no African Americans when we started in January of 2015. Within a year and a half of those 32 chief counsels, we had 4 African American chiefs. One of the things that 3 women and 1 man. One of the things I've really enjoyed about being a judge for the last 7 months is the relationship with law clerks. And we have several law clerks on the Superior Court. We're a very busy court, and we need those clerks. I have a very diverse group of law clerks that I hired, and it's a great pleasure to mentor those young lawyers early in their career. 3 women and 2 men on my group, 1 Latina, 1 Filipino, and having the time to spend with them early in their career so they can learn to be good leaders going forward is really important to me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we're going to take a break now and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
From Both Sides is a production of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy and is made possible by the support of the Pennsylvania Center for Women and Politics at Chatham University, a nonpartisan center devoted to fostering women's public leadership through education, empowerment, and action. The first to focus on women's political involvement in Pennsylvania, the center integrates disciplinary knowledge, civic education, and capacity building, while examining the intersection of women and public policy. From Both Sides is also sponsored by the Winter Group, a full-service government relations firm based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We guide clients through the challenging seasons of public affairs with experience and capability second to none. Visit us at www.wintergrouppa.com. From Both Sides is also supported as a public service by Saul Ewing LLP, a law firm with a 100-year tradition of serving the needs of business, government, education, healthcare, technology, and manufacturing in our region. And by the University Center for International Studies, the engine for extending the global reach of the University of Pittsburgh and its students. From Both Sides is also sponsored by Dr. Wendell Funk, one of Central Pennsylvania's most experienced cosmetic plastic surgeons. Dr. Funk is a leader in new and innovative non-invasive procedures like cool sculpting. His long-term experience with all types of cosmetic surgery, as well as facial injectables, keeps new and repeat patients returning to his practice in Lancaster, York, and Camp Hill. From Both Sides is also sponsored by the Ed and Jeannie Arnold Foundation.
Hello and welcome back to From Both Sides. We're here with the Pennsylvania Federation of Democratic Women for their 2017 Judicial Forum with the 4 endorsed Democratic candidates for Superior Court. Next question, and we'll start with Judge McLaughlin. I think everybody already knows that based on all of your background that you're very accomplished in the field of law. So if we asked your spouse or your family about your character, what would they say about you?
I think they would say I am a dedicated mother. I think first and foremost, at home especially, I am not judge. I don't certainly get any kind of preferential treatment. Nobody stands up when I walk in the room. Quite the opposite. I am the one waiting on everybody. But they would say that I'm dedicated and I'm feisty and I am a winner. Because if I didn't have my family behind me, I don't know what I could do. So I am fortunate to have a wonderful family, spouse, and children.
Well, it's definitely true that at home I'm not treated special. As I said before, our girls are grown, so it's just my wife Lisa and I at home now. I think that she would describe me as very hardworking, a little bit driven as far as that's concerned. One of the things that judges need to be is to have judicial temperament, and that means being objective and dispassionate, deciding cases based on the facts and the law and not on emotion. I think my wife would say that that is one of my character traits. She might well say that that's a character flaw at home. I think I'm somebody, when she's yelling at the TV, I tend to say, well, wait a minute, it's not as crazy as you think. Here's the other side of the story. I've learned at home that's not always great for marital bliss. So I've learned my lesson there, but in terms of being a judge, that's what we want from a judge, somebody who's objective, dispassionate, empathetic as well. I think she would view me as a strong judicial candidate, I hope.
All right, I think with me, well, I'm a dedicated auntie, and I guess I've spoiled my my niece and nephew through their lifetimes, but you know, such as love, unconditional love. The most important thing about me is work ethic. Through law school, I worked in the basement of the police administration building, doing bail interviews from 12 midnight to 8 in the morning, and then going to law school. And one of my philosophy as being a judge is that people of Pennsylvania have just as much right to expect that their judges work just as hard as they do, because we're servant leaders first. We work for you. We as judges work for you. You elect us. We work for you. It's not the other way around. So, you know, we serve you, and that's what it's all about, being a servant leader, really being about helping other people. Where can I help? Being fair and balanced, understanding the human condition. That's the most important thing for a judge, is to understand the human condition and do the right thing for people. Thank you.
So I'm a wife and mom. I've been married for 22 years, almost 23, and I have 3 children. So I think what they would say about me is that I always put everybody else's needs first. I'm constantly putting my kids up before myself, my spouse before myself, my parents. I'm a carpool mom, so I've been the cheer mom, the basketball mom, the football mom, and now I'm also a dance mom. So I'm always running to my kids' events and making sure that they have what they need. And I do the same thing in the courtroom. My secretary is always impressed by the fact that I take the extra 5 minutes to help people out. So if I can't help them on their legal matter, for example, on a landlord-tenant dispute, I might be running back to my chambers to get the number for the housing authority so that people have some place to call to be able to find housing. So I'm always trying to go the extra mile for other people. I think that's what they would say about me.
This is our final question, so you can consider this also your closing remarks. If elected at the end of your 10-year term, how will you measure success? Judge Moulton, if we start with you.
Thank you. I think at the end of 10 years, and that's a long time from now, I think I would want litigants who come before me and lawyers who appear before me to believe, each and every one of them, that they were treated fairly and appropriately with dignity and respect, and that even if they didn't agree with my decision at the end of the day, they understood the reasons for it and accepted them as best they could. I hope that over time that I can make a difference to the court and to the law. We are an intermediate appellate court, so ultimately the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is the ultimate arbiter of the law here in Pennsylvania, but we can have a big impact on the shape of the law as well as on individual person's decisions. So I hope that people view me as somebody who's fair, impartial, maybe a little too dispassionate at home, but who treats everybody fairly when they appear before him.
Well, I think the number one thing for me as a judge, looking back over 10 years, would be that people coming to my court, when they came out of my court, no matter how the decision went, they know that they got justice. They know that they were heard. They know that they weren't just made short shrift of and disrespected, that they were treated respectfully, regardless of their background, regardless if they were a defendant, regardless what they were tried for. And the same with the Superior Court. You get the appeals, 60% are criminal cases. So the attorneys coming in and arguing, they're looking at the appellate judge. Is that judge really listening? Is that judge really looking into the law, deeply into the law, to make the right decision and to be fair and balanced, not leaning one way or the other? And again, it's all about service. That's my theme. It's really about serving the people of Pennsylvania. That's what I would want people to say, looking at my judicial career, looking back over a 10-year period of time.
So I was asked this very same question when I was first elected to the bench, but before I even started. And I thought, well, that's strange. What do I hope people will say about me when my career is over? And I was reminded of Stephen Covey, who says that you should begin with the end in mind. It's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. So I thought about it, and I said, I really hope that people will say that I knew the law. Because first and foremost, you want a judge that understands and knows the law. I would hate for somebody to get an opinion from me and say, what the heck was that judge thinking? So I want to make sure that I'm a scholar of the law, that I'm always constantly learning, and that I want to make the right decision. Second, I hope that people will say, like Jeff said, that I was fair to everybody who appeared before me, that I listened, that I was a good listener. and then finally I said that I had a good heart, that I cared about what I did, and I cared about the people that I served, the people who came in, who appeared before me, that I understood the arguments, and I made the decision the best I could on that given day. So that's what I hope people will say about me.
So I hope 10 years from now, people will say, wow, look at all the judges, the young judges Judge McLaughlin mentored. Look at all of these women that were in her courtroom every Friday, and look at what wonderful judges they are, what wonderful lawyers they are, what wonderful doctors they are. Whatever it is they choose, that Judge McLaughlin had an impact on their life. Because I think there's nothing more important with your legacy is to carry it forward. I hope that they say, look at these fine young men that she raised. That's what I hope. My judicial career is secondary to how I am as a person, but I certainly hope they also say, wow, Judge McLaughlin is a wonderful Superior Court judge. With your help and with your votes, I hope to get there. Thank you.
I think we, as the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, have an excellent slate of candidates for Superior Court, and I hope the audience will join me in thanking them for being here at this forum tonight. I would also like to thank my colleague Diane Gregg for working on the forum with me. We'll be doing a forum next tomorrow on the Commonwealth Court candidates for the show. And so I'd like to thank the viewers now for joining us on behalf of the Pennsylvania Federation of Democratic Women and from both sides. I'd also ask you to remember the most important point about this show, that your vote is of primary importance. Please vote on primary election day, May the 16th. And finally, please remember, as women in Pennsylvania, there's much more that unites us than divides us. Thank you very much for joining us, and please join us again.